heading into Christmas with a win. Not everybody obviously gets to do that, and I thought our guys, from the beginning, certainly did not play perfectly, but they did a nice job, overall defensively of making things difficult. Maryland Eastern Shore did a nice job of taking time, each possession, and testing us defensively. And sometimes we were able to win the possession and get to the end and get the stop, and some other times we leaked a couple of baskets, at the rim. But good to have Sean back out there. Good to have Joe back out there now. The other guys, I thought there were some great minutes from guys, certainly off the bench. Talk about Jason, talk about Kwani. I thought both of those guys, really stepped up for us. Toby had his moments. Firm, second half, got off to a good start, but didn't have any rebounds in the first half. Second half, his defense was much better, and so we were certainly happy about that. But all in all, a good win.
Coach, it's a good problem to have too much talent, but are there any challenges to blending in guys when you're this deep into the season and now you've got a shooter like Joe and Sean who's been such a part of your career?
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's definitely provides challenges, right? But you'd rather have it this way than the other way, right? Where you don't have exactly what you need. And so our job is to put it together and make sure that these guys are playing, most importantly, for one another. And, I have every confidence that that's going to happen. But it's not going to be clicking right away. It is what it is. It takes time, to work through it and work through rotations, work through who needs to play at this time, what lineup do we need out there at this time. That's not an easy thing to put together when you have, this many guys, right, that are all good players. And but I think there is a strength that's to it, right? And the message is like we're stronger together, and we have to keep working to a point where, like I'm talking about an individual player. I'm going to be consistent during this stretch that I play, however many minutes that is. Is it 5? Is it 2? Is it 7? Whatever it is, I'm going to play till exhaustion. And then I know that my teammate's got my back. He's going to come in. And he's going to give that same effort, and so we've got to continue to try to, create that, for our guys and make sure that they understand, the breakdowns can't happen, right? Because there's always somebody right there that you can put in when those breakdowns are happening to an individual.
Did he look like the Sean that you're so used to? Do you think there's still a little bit of ways he has to go to get back to 100% out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely not, from a timing perspective, yeah, I mean, it's his first time playing in a game since the NCAA tournament last year, if you think about it, right, against Missouri. And so, for him to do what he did today, I thought was good. It was a little bit, he wasn't rusty at the beginning because the ball was clean in his hands. I think it's just the stops, right? And, getting on balance and some of those things. And I think you saw in the second half him settle in, to that. He can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. He can certainly finish. I think you could see the connection. There was one possession in the second half where he and Max were just kind of going back and forth. And I think the key is making sure that all of our guys, can do that for one another. I think you saw some instances where it can happen. There's glimpses of it, right? Janelle gets in the paint, stops and turns, looks, and then all of a sudden Max is wide open. When was the last time Max was wide open for a shot? You know what I mean? And Joe the same way. And so Kwani's improving and coming into his own. So a lot of positives, but we've still got to refine and continue to get better.
Tempo and ball movement are those two big ways in which Sean can impact the game. He really keeps it hot.
Yeah, I mean, he can handle it, he can pass it, he can shoot it. He's I really love the way he passes. I mean, I think you remember me telling you, like he had the most assists and least amount of turnovers, throughout the whole preseason. And so, that's the ball is in his hands a lot, and doesn't mean he has to be the only one. But I think, we have the depth where multiple guys can kind of take up for one another at times, and we can go at matchups, I think. But we got to settle in a little bit, and get to that point.
Jason Nelson comes off the bench, plays second most minutes, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. Can you talk about just his presence on the court and just and off the court?
He was the player of the game for us, in the locker room afterwards. And I hadn't even seen that he had 7 assists and 0 turnovers. I just knew he played a good game. He played a very consistent game, right? He was determined. The most noticeable play, obviously, was the 50-50 ball where he dives on it, right? And gets a layup for Fats. We kind of botched the end of the half, right? They end up with like 3 chances if you count, coming out of halftime, to score baskets. We kind of dodged a bullet there. We've got to be better, at the end of halves, to finish things off. And, going back to Jason, he gets to stop, on that last play, pretty much by himself. Like the guy's trying to drive at him, he just takes the ball, and he was determined, to get the stop. And that's what we need from J-Nell. Like, he's a really good player. He's a great teammate, and all of our guys are going to have to sacrifice in some way, right? And certainly him coming off the bench and being into it and being focused, was key, to tonight. It was one of the things that we talked about prior to the game. It's like, give us your best effort, remain focused, let's really execute, right? And let's be an energy giver throughout the game, and then let's do it over and over and over again. And, I think for the most part, the guys tried to do that. You're not going to play a perfect game, and so there's clearly certain things that we can learn from. But Jason, certainly played an excellent game.
Coach, you were visibly frustrated in the second half with rebounding. Can you speak
Yeah.
to some of the struggles you've had with that all year?
Yeah, we were certainly coming in at halftime offensive rebounding. We didn't get on the glass. We told Firm at half, hey man, you didn't play a ton. You played 8.5 minutes, but you need to get some rebounds. And same thing with Toby. Like he can be a beast on the glass, and he started to do it. But again, you have to do it over and over and over again. There has to be a consistency with it, and in terms of your effort to go get it, you're not going to get it every time, but the effort to get it is really important. And the blockouts at times, the fouls, in that middle stretch where we weren't playing particularly well, and they were kind of inching back in. Those were times where we didn't come up with those 50-50 balls, the rebounds that you're talking about. And the guys settled in and did what they needed to do, in that moment.
It seems like one of Sean's underrated characteristics is boxing out as defender. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what those intangibles mean? Like what he brings besides just...
Yeah, I mean, you saw him switch, a couple of times, even in the first half, he switched with Firm, I think. Might have been Toby. Right at the rim, and then the guy tried to drop it to Firm's man, and he just knocked it out of bounds. Well, those are some plays that younger players miss, because they're just focused on their guy and the switch and all that, as opposed to, I got to get over here and take away this guy. And he's just well schooled in that. It's just kind of second nature for him. Wasn't always that way. When we first got to Utah State, we had to encourage him to go rebound and block out and do better in that area. And so doesn't mean he's going to be perfect now, but he's got it, right? He's got it, and we've got to continue to get our younger guys better at it.
Coach, you're more than familiar with the Sean and Max 10. What were the biggest things you saw of those two as a pair tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think Max is more at ease, right? I think that's probably the biggest thing. Max has had a lot on him. And, I mean, you saw even when I tried to run one play, which was for him, and they ran 2 guys at him right away, right? Because they don't want to let him do what he does. And so we've got to continue to account for that. And I think, it's going to become less and less likely because you've got, other guys, be it Sean, who's played a lot of basketball, in college, and Joe obviously has too. Makes it harder to do that. J-Nell's shooting a really good percentage. Zeb's doing great. There's Kwani's playing better, right? And so it becomes a little bit harder to just load up, like teams have been doing on us.
Coach, with the additions of Joe and Sean, all of a sudden you're super experienced, except for at the 5. What's the biggest leap those guys got to make to kind of solidify 5 some.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing well right now, right? Like Toby's played big in some big games, you know, and Firm's played huge in some big games. You know, Iowa State, he played 37 minutes, you know, in that game, and was excellent. You know, there may be some times where we need to get Toby to the fore. You know, that was a defensive lineup in that game that was pretty hard for Iowa State in that first half. Now, they obviously figured it out, you know, in the second. And we struggled a little more scoring, but there's some defensive lineups that we can put out there that I think are pretty long, you know, and athletic, and it can make it hard for the other team to score. But, you know, they've just got to be more consistent, you know, with the coverages and the physicality and more disciplined, right? I think that's one of the words that I use with Toby all the time. It's like if he can add the word discipline to what he already has, right? The athleticism and the gifts that he has. Now it becomes really hard. You know, the foul that he made on the kid shooting in the lane, like if he was just a tad bit more disciplined there and still physical, right? But more disciplined and not, you know, chucking it, right? Make that shot. And now you're in position to actually get the rebound. But sometimes the young nerves get in there and they just want to do it, right? I got to do it right now. Or they're trying to make up for something that just happened. Well, you don't always have to do that. You just have to be solid. And so they'll get there. You know, they'll get there for sure. They're already helping our team.
Maryland Eastern Shore got to within 11 at the under-8 media.
Yep.
And then you all outscored them 20-7 the rest of the way. What were the points of emphasis in that media timeout, and what did you see over those last 7 minutes? That
Yeah, I mean, just being solid, right? You know, being solid, making 2-foot plays, you know, not fouling jump shooters, you know, forcing misses, right? And I think when it wasn't going our way in that little stretch, you know, we had multiple fouls, right? And then we had some layups that we leaked. And so, you know, they made a couple of tough shots. You know, the 1-3 on Sean was pretty hard. You know, he pulled it back and fired it. But, you know, we got backdoored, you know. Like Joe got backdoored. That was one of the reasons he came out of the game. We missed a block out, and Zeb came out. And maybe I was wrong on that one, but I thought it was Zeb. And I got to check it, you know, when I get back to watching the film. But, you know, we can't do that. You know, we got to make sure that we're on it and we're more solid, right, and more disciplined. And I think we were on both sides. We got the shot we wanted, and then we got the stop that we needed, and got them deeper into the clock.
You guys played 10 games without Sean and Joe. So what did you see during those 10 games? What are the positives you can take with the experience? And some guys got playing minutes that they might not have been playing had you had Joe and
Yeah,
Sean
they played in some big moments, some where we fell short, right? And some where, you know, we had to answer, you know, early in the season here in Siegel. Like, Sanford hadn't lost, you know, since they were in here. Like, they're 10-2 right now. You know, Seattle's good. You know, they're in double overtime with, you know, Washington. And so some of these teams that don't have, you know, the names that we all know, they're all good. And so our guys had to step up in big moments to make plays. And, you know, I think there's no substitute for the experience that you can gain while being out there, right? And having to answer in those times. And so all of them, you know, have done really well. Michael Bell, you know, he's not playing his best basketball right now, right? Like he was a little bit earlier, right? Down in Orlando, he was phenomenal. And we'll get him back to that. Right, that's freshmen go through it. There's seasons within a season, you know, that you have to navigate. And I think they've all been very coachable through these moments and determined, you know, to do a little bit better and learn. And I think that's what I like most about this team is they're honest with themselves. They're able to look themselves in the mirror when they make mistakes. They don't make excuses, and they try to get a little bit better. And you know, ultimately, if you take that mindset and you have that attitude each and every day, you will get better. If you're allergic to it, to being coached or to being told that you need to do this a little bit better, right? Well, then you may get a little bit better, but you're not going to have the gains that you so desire. And so, I like the attitude of the team.
Anything else, guys?
Have a Merry Christmas, guys.
Thank you, Ryan. You too.
What do you want for Christmas?
Huh?
What do you want for Christmas?